everyone, and welcome back to yet another video from my channel Interactive Education, running for the best education possible from the student to the student for a better experience. And today we will be continuing the chapter Heredity and Evolution, and we'll be taking up the next concept, speciation. Now we've already looked at acquired inherited traits, we've looked at the concept of evolution, we've looked at what all these things mean. And we've looked at how genetic drift works, natural selection works, mutation, migration works, right? And we've even looked at Hardy-Weinberg's principle. But now, let us look at another perspective. How can we form new species, right? We've looked at how organisms evolve, but how are new species formed? Let us see. Basically, the word speciation means the creation of a new species due to reproductive isolation. That is, we isolate, we do not reproduce with them, right? So they are isolated, a group of community or a group of organisms is isolated and they just have to reproduce amongst themselves. There's no one else outside from where they can reproduce due to reproductive isolation, or it can be due to mutation, etc. That is, factors caused due to natural selection, and here these words are important. Natural selection, that is another Darwinian theory, and genetic drift, again a Darwinian idea. So basically a species can be formed due to reproductive isolation. Basically, what is a species? A species is a group of organisms which can breed and perpetuate amongst themselves, right? That's a species. So when in one community of organisms, we separate out an organism, a group of organisms, and not at all reproduce with them, then we can say that this is reproductive isolation. We are not reproducing with it, right? Moreover, factors such as natural selection and genetic drift. We've looked at natural selection, okay, that there can be a particular group of organisms which is favored and which can favorably survive. So therefore, it survives and it forms a different group. Moreover, genetic drift due to some accidental increase in a population, right? Again, that can be a factor due to which that particular organism's group, which has survived that accidental action, can grow into a new species, right? So this creation of a new species due to reproductive isolation, mutation, etc., that is factors caused due to natural selection and genetic drift, right? So when these two together act, sometimes they can separate out a group of organisms from one group. From one whole group, they can separate out a chunk, and these can, if there is geographical barrier or there are certain barriers which prevent them from reproducing with others, then obviously it can lead to some due to a creation of a new species of that separated population, right? So that is speciation. I hope that's absolutely clear, right? I know the textbook is a bit complex in this matter, but anyway, we will continue. I hope you understood from me at least. If not, please leave your feedback. So now, that is it in NCERT for speciation, right? And they've just given an example of beetles, and I hope you can understand that. This is the basic idea from that. But I really don't like to finish up a video in 5 minutes or 3 minutes, because obviously we don't want to waste our time. So let us look into detail about speciation, right? And this is very interesting. Let us see. Speciation is of two kinds. Again, not in the textbook. It is a 12th standard portion, I believe. So you can enjoy this and it can help you in competitive examinations. Now, the two kinds of speciation. We have gradual speciation and we have abrupt speciation. We'll discuss each and every one of them. Gradual is basically slow process. That is, speciation is taking place slowly. It is taking place relatively at a lower pace. It is not taking place really fast. Abrupt is very sudden. When it is a sudden form of speciation, that is a sudden creation of a species, that is abrupt speciation, right? Let us have a look at each of them. let's have a look at gradual speciation first, right? Which is, I suppose, slow form of speciation, speciation taking place slowly over time. Now, this again is of two kinds. You have allopatric speciation or allopatric gradual speciation and sympatric gradual speciation. Let's have a look. Allopatric. Now, allopatric, the word allopatric, basically this has a reference to common. Allo basically is a word which refers to common. So allopatric means common origin. There is a common origin, common ancestor of organisms. There is a common ancestor, common origin ancestor. Right? Now, when this ancestor or when this group of organisms, this is the ancestor, common ancestor. Now, when these actually just have a community of organisms, ancestor means it's a community of organisms, and these organisms split, they break apart, and they go to different areas and form different groups of organisms. So this is group 1, this is group 2, and this is group 3. In separate areas, separate places, and there are in between them geographical barriers. Right? So geographical barriers. And these geographical barriers, basically they are barriers which prevent these groups which have separated from the ancestor to mingle and to reproduce with each other. Therefore, they prevent reproduction or cross-reproduction between the groups, right? Cross-reproduction, right? So they are forced to reproduce amongst themselves. The group of organisms, they have to reproduce amongst themselves. The group 1 has to reproduce amongst itself, group 2 amongst itself, group 3 amongst itself. Organisms cannot cross-reproduce. So in this case, there will be a point in time when these groups, they just develop into separate species. And this one develops into species 3. So you can see now species 1, species 2, and species 3 are independent species. And you can see here, gosh, my spelling, dependent species. And you can see here now that S1, S2, S3 all had a common ancestor. They had a common ancestor from which they separated, and then geographical barriers were created between them. Then automatically they had to just reproduce, and over time they developed into several different species, right? So this is where this form of speciation, where there is a common ancestor from where there is separation, and then geographical barriers prevent cross reproduction, and due to just internal reproduction, several species are created. This form of speciation is, in gradual processes, called allopatric gradual speciation. Right? I hope that's absolutely clear. Next, we come to sympatric gradual speciation. Basically, it's very, very similar to allopatric speciation, but it has a slight difference. In sympatric speciation, the species, that are the species which have been formed, they live in the same geographical area. Now you can see that this is slightly different from allopatric, because in allopatric they were living in different geographical areas and there were geographical barriers between them. But sympatric live in the same geographical area, but the thing is that they occupy different ecological niches. They occupy different ecological niches. Now, what this basically means, the word niche. Niche is basically a well-defined place. well-defined place which can be occupied by a group of organisms, right? For living. So sympatric is basically where species which are formed, they live in the same geographical area, but they occupy different ecological niches. Therefore, there is a separation between them because they are occupying different niches. So suppose there is a land and this is the same geographical area, but this is a separate niche and this is a separate niche. So organisms are separate here. They live, separate organisms live in their respective niches, and they don't come out of those niches, right? Usually they don't come out of those niches, such organisms. So this occupy them, and obviously they will form different species, right? Species 1, species 2, right? So this is how your sympatric gradual speciation is taking place. They will just separate out into different niches, live there, and automatically develop into new species. Right? That's absolutely clear to each and every one of you. Right? Next, we come to the last form, which is abrupt or sudden. Right? And I'm going to just discuss it in a bit of detail, this one. Abrupt, as I've already discussed, abrupt form of speciation, abrupt speciation. Abrupt form of speciation is basically where there is a sudden speciation, sudden species formation. There is a sudden formation of species. Okay, it's not a gradual process. There is some genetic oodaboo, a bit of change, due to which there is a species formation. Now, let us have a look at in which forms this can take place. Now, abrupt speciation can take place mainly through two methods. Number one, mutation. Obviously, we've discussed this. Mutation is change in the genetic order, change in gene, and due to that change in gene, if it is, not too harmful to the organism, then it can lead to a genetic or gene manipulation, due to which a new species can form the different gene order, right? And number two is hybridization. Now, hybridization is basically a biological process. Now, there is a chemical hybridization as well, but that's different. Here, hybridization is a biological process which is crossing between two different species. Now, this has to be possible. It is not always possible. In most cases, it is not possible. But if it is possible, we are performing it. So, crossing between two different species, if possible, to form a new third species. Okay, so this is your hybridization. Now, let's see how this is taking place with an example, right? Let's take an example. I'm taking the example of wheat. Now, you all know what is wheat, right? Wheat is what forms our basic diet, especially for Indians. We eat chapati, roti, paratha. So all these are formed of wheat. And even bread is made of wheat. So wheat is a very crucial grain, right? Now, the biological name of wheat is Triticum aestivum. This is a scientific name through binomial nomenclature of wheat, that is Triticum aestivum. Right, binomial nomenclature, 9th standard biology. Now, how is this Triticum aestivum produced? It is produced through hybridization. Let's see how. First of all, this is the first case, or the first step. First of all, we take two plants, right? That is, one is Triticum monococcum. So that's the first plant we're taking. Triticum monococcum. It's a form of plant, right? Triticum monococcum. This Triticum monococcum is crossed with Aegilops speltoides. Okay? So Aegilops speltoides is crossed with Triticum monococcum. Again, there are two different plants and two different species of plants, right? When we cross them, this Triticum monococcum has a diploid cell or diploid cells which have 2n chromosomes with 14 pairs, with 14 chromosomes. Right? Now we have looked at haploid and diploid cells in my reproduction videos. You can look them up if you wish, and even in my cell division series. So here, its cells are diploid with 2n chromosomes equal to 14 chromosomes, right? So we know that the gamete of this plant will have exactly half the number of chromosomes as in a normal cell, since it's a diploid cell. So N, which is going to denote the number of chromosomes in the gamete, will be 7. Right? So it's going to give N equal to 7 in the gamete. Abrupt speltoids. This one too has a diploid cell structure of 2n equal to 14 chromosomes, right? And again, this too contributes its own n equal to 7 chromosomes through the gamete, right? These two cross and they form a new organism with 2n equal to 14 chromosomes, the offspring, right? Again with the same number. Now, the next thing we do is double the chromosomes. Now, this is done manually, so doubling of chromosomes. Now, we double the chromosomes, and then we get another plant or another organism or another, yes, you can say plant, with 4n chromosomes equal to 28, which is a tetraploid organism. Right? It has 4 pairs of chromosomes, or it has 4 chromosomes in sets of 4. So it's a tetraploid organism, and the name of this was kept as Triticum durum. Again, a type of plant, right? A part of the wheat family. So Triticum durum, right? So that was the first step. Next step, number 2. We took the Triticum durum, right? We took the Triticum durum, which had, now it was tetraploid with 4n equal to 28, as you can see here, right? It was tetraploid with 4n equal to 28 after doubling of chromosomes. So Triticum durum, 4n equal to 28 in one tetraploid cell. This was crossed with another organism of the same genus as Abrupt speltoids, and this was Abrupt. It's of the same genus, Abrupt squarosa. Right, now these were crossed. Abrupt squarosa had a diploid cell of 14 chromosomes, right, like Abrupt speltoids and Triticum monococcum, right? Now then, we cross these. And again, this time, we know that the gametes are going to give half the number of chromosomes as in a normal cell. Now here you can see the normal cell has 4n chromosomes. So half of 4n will be 2n, and it is going to contribute 2n chromosomes equal to half the number of chromosomes, that is 14. Right? Half the number of this. This is the number of chromosomes in a normal cell. So it's going to contribute half of that. That is here 2n equal to 14. Abrupt squarosa again is going to contribute half of what it has, that is 2 and half, that is n, again half of 14, that is 7. Right? Now, when these combined, an organism was formed which was triploid, which had 3n chromosomes in a normal cell equal to 21. Right? Now, this was triploid. Right? And then the last step which we did to get our wheat was to again double the chromosomes. Okay, so we doubled the chromosomes. Okay, so when the chromosomes were doubled, again we get, after 3 into 2, that is again we get 6n equal to 42. So we got a hexaploid organism. Hexaploid organism, and this was our own wheat, which we call in science Triticum aestivum. That's it. That's how we get Triticum aestivum. That's how we got Triticum aestivum, right? That's how we relish our wheat. And this was how we do abrupt speciation, an example of abrupt speciation. It can be done through mutation as well, I've discussed, and I've discussed hybridization in a lot of detail with an example, right? So I hope that's absolutely clear, and with this we conclude our video on speciation. Thank you for joining me today. I hope you liked it. I hope you learned something, you understood everything. Do like and subscribe, and I'm open always to any comments, suggestions, and do like and subscribe, and please look at my other videos in reproduction as well. Thank you very much. Goodbye, stay healthy, stay smart, and you keep studying. Bye bye.